started. Good Lord bless us. Don't worry about it, man. It's just a conversation. Sure. All right. So you're a husband now.
Yes, sir.
You're a dad of 4 girls.
Soon to be.
Soon to be 4 girls. Yeah. You got 3 right now, about to be 4. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's definitely grateful, blessed. It's tough, stressful, uh, because you think of all the sweet times and as we talked about with kids and with their pronunciation, when they say certain words, it's cute whether they have a lisp or they don't say it properly, and then in a flash it goes to them having attitude, and then especially having girls, then you have to think about dating boys and all that other girl stuff. You have to worry about. um, so overall, grateful and blessed. Um, and I guess I'm ready.
Yeah.
I have
You have no choice.
I have no choice.
You're either ready or not, but it's happening either way.
Yeah,
You have how many siblings?
I have total
Total.
9.
How many were you raised with? Right? Because I know some of them are like half siblings.
Right. There was 5 of us total.
5 total.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 4 boys and a girl, and yeah, then my father has my sister and 4 other brothers.
Did you always think like, okay, like I like this dynamic, I like having these siblings, is this something that I want for myself in the future, like to have kids with a lot of siblings? Like was that something that you thought about when you were growing up?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Just being all of us together, like we most times all shared a room, or even shared toys, shared PlayStations, Xboxes, and all that stuff. So although at times it was like stressful and like chaotic and stuff, it was like looking back, it did bring us a lot closer to one another. Because we went through hard times together as well, and a lot of good as well. But yeah, definitely like when Wendy, the wife, we first started dating and stuff like that, and we fell in love and we started talking about having kids. I was like, oh, I want. I mean, I came from 5. I was like, I wouldn't mind having 5, even just 4, you know. And then she was like, she comes from 3, so she's like, no, I'm cool with 3 or even 2 or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know. I come from a big family. It was always there was 4 boys, so it was always like 2 and 2 against one another. And then my sister was kind of like left out to the side and always got picked on.
Yeah.
But
yeah, 4 boys, 1 girl. I'm sure
yeah,
she was.
exactly.
She didn't have an
She
easy
got the
go.
worst of it, yeah. So yeah, I did think about having like a large family, and even my mom, she's the youngest of 6, so it was like always there was like a trend, I guess you could say. Even just our family parties, like just our like me and my siblings that we talked about, and like their kids and whatever their significant others.
Yeah.
It's just like when we have a party, it's like, ooh, I talked to Wendy, she's like, I got like a fraction of these people. And she's like, your family, that's like over 20 people already.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah. So I've always liked that. And we've always, just the cousins always getting together. Like I said, even extending above like with my grandparents and stuff like that, my mom and her siblings and stuff like that, all the cousins. So I've always had that growing up. So I wanted that myself as well. And it also seemed like my grandparents too, having them like with all their kids and then their grandkids and then their great grandkids, and like a legacy that they leave behind. It was just like, I guess, like something I strive to as well.
I mean, what was that childhood like? How is it growing up with 5 siblings? Like, was it easy? Was it fun? Was it challenging? How would you describe your upbringing?
I would say in the moment, I mean, what we went through was pretty much all we knew. If you ask if it was a struggle, yeah, there was a struggle as the parents trying to provide for 5 kids, from food to clothes to whatever the case, any necessities or even luxuries. There was a point in time where, I mean, we didn't have all the clothes that we wanted, but we had enough clothes on our back, I would say. Even if it was like a few shirts or a few pants, few shoes. And even then, like as we started getting older, we started to, and being the same size, and share shoes and share clothes and fortunately for me, as I got a little bit older, became a little bit bigger than all of them. So my shoe was always bigger at some point in time in the teens, like where my shoe was bigger, so we couldn't share shoes anymore.
Yeah.
This kind of sucked for me, but also they couldn't borrow any of my stuff,
yeah.
you know. But no, definitely, it was. I would say it was a struggle. There was, I hope none of my siblings mind me saying any of this stuff, but there were times where there was like little to no food to eat, and but we had, whether it be like my mom, like my grandparents, they helped us out a lot as well. My mom's parents, and even my stepdad at the time too, uh, who didn't really partake in a good lifestyle, but was still like hustled for us, and made sure it wasn't like we went days without eating and stuff like that. But like when you open the fridge, it was like some hot dog buns, jelly, maybe some peanut butter. Like I said at the time, with what little we had, I don't think we looked at it as like, I don't know how to describe it, more of like in a negative way. We're like, damn, like why do we have this? And maybe we were ungrateful at sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, what we give our kids, where they can just go into the pantry and like snacks, or
Yeah.
there's fruit on the table, or there at least there's something in the fridge where it's like stocked up. Like if I go in yours, I know that it's like stocked up.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for us, it was just like, oh, again, I'm trying to I'm trying to paint this where it's like not like where we were like totally struggling.
It wasn't like
It was a struggle.
it wasn't like an overflow, but it also wasn't like
Yeah.
severe lack.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was like you guys had enough, and maybe sometimes it felt like it was a little less than enough, but it was still
Yeah.
manageable. Going back to the childhood,
Okay.
what are some things from your childhood that you feel have shaped you into who you are today as a dad, as a man, just generally, as a father? What are things that you carry with you from your childhood?
The good things that I carried over from childhood, I would say, is like valuing family. Um, growing up with a room full of siblings, and just that variety, I guess you can say, and even with cousins, allowed me to see the importance of family. Looking back bad in childhood, that I was able to carry over as a father, which I'm still working through, is the bad things of like the father figures in my life and stuff like that. Like being my stepdad wasn't. He did get us out of some struggle, but also put us in some struggle, and wasn't the best father figure or role model, and that allowed me to see what not to do. Before I was even able to realize anything, or such a young age, uh, my mom and dad weren't together. Uh, and then shortly after, she met my stepdad, who's the father of my two younger brothers and sister. And again, with him being in a gang and being involved with drugs, whether it be dealing or using and stuff like that, I look back and I'm like, okay, I know not to do that. And thankfully, and looking back now that I have God in my life, knowing that He was there to be like, he no matter all the struggle and possibly temptation that we went through, we never got caught up in drugs. Or I mean, shoot, I started drinking at what, 17, which I guess is a drug. And then didn't even smoke weed till like I was 31, and then that only lasted like a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Never even like, because we were around, like I said, drug deals, and around the drugs, like all various types of drugs, like hardcore drugs and stuff like that. But it was never like so going back to that, like seeing all that bad stuff and not having that proper leadership in my life, and that bad stuff I carried over was to like, this is what you don't do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that I didn't have like good father figures in my life, like my grandfather being one of them, but it was never really like, he never really established like, hey, I'm your father, I'm taking place of your father.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you do, this is what you don't do. He kind of just like, I am your grandfather, and he didn't really speak much, he kind of just did,
Led by action, not by word.
exactly, yeah. So he was very calm, very laid back, kind of easy go with the flow, but he provided for us.
Mm.
But again, like even that bad stuff, I feel like, and probably have to do some healing on it, where it starts to creep in, and you're like, damn, I'm acting just like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
So fast forward to today. Obviously, you're a man of faith today, right? I mean, growing up, were you aware of God? Did anybody in your family have a relationship with God, or I mean, were you just not even there, like
Yeah.
growing up?
Yeah, no, at a very young age, like I mentioned before, we were raised with my grandparents. And my grandma wasn't like super religious, but she would bring up a lot of stuff about, the Bible, about God and Jesus and stuff. And one thing I remember, and I always go reflect back to her, whether she was aware of it or not, and how of an impact it made on me. But me and my older brother, we used to fight a lot, and I was usually always the victim. So my grandma would always call us Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel. And she would always like yell at us, and she's like, "You're just like Cain and Abel," and then that led to me being like grandma's boy. You know what I mean? But it was just because I was like never really swung back or hit back. I just kind of like took it, and
Yeah.
then my brother was the aggressor. Therefore, him being Cain. But no, like my grandma would always throw in like little nuggets here and there, talking about like the afterlife and going to heaven and stuff like that. And then even her story, she doesn't. I don't think she understands fully where she's at. I feel like she may have to feel like she's tied to a certain religion because they, at some point in their time, they believed in like the Jehovah Witness way. But she would still drop like little nuggets for us. And so I was aware. Adam and Eve at the beginnings, and you're familiar with them. Yeah, so we were always familiar. And then one of my uncles, my uncle Louis, who we were very close to, and out of all the uncles still are, because he was always around and always invited us to his house and stuff like that. He was very like for God, and still to this day. So being close to him, and again going back to the father figure thing, I guess we were always searching for that, so we found it in him. Being a male, and just like, and but he always guided us towards there. So like any opportunity he had to talk about God, and obviously his daughters, our cousins, um, they being around them, we were like aware of it because they would, as kids, they drop little stories and stuff, and then so with being around him and going to his house a lot, we were familiar with Jesus and the story of God, and even accepted Jesus into our heart at a very young age. I remember being in his living room, like he asked us, like, "Do you want, schooled us on all of the stuff going to heaven?" And so he asked, like, do you want to accept Jesus into your heart? And you're like 7, 8 years old. We're like, yeah, dude, why not? Let's go for it.
Let's go for
like,
it.
You're cool. You're a cool uncle. Like, why not?
Sounds like a cool guy.
You're a cool guy. You like him. So we're like, yeah, we did that. So we're always familiar with it. So we always, and him being a Christian, we always, growing up, we claimed Christianity. We kind of followed it. We claimed Christianity, and we believed in God, and we believed in Jesus, but not really knowing it aside from just what he taught us and stuff like that. And at a young age, never picked up a Bible really, and just kind of just went with the flow because it's somebody he was somebody we looked up to. And so yeah, and then like kind of like fast forward growing up into like teens and stuff like that, still had a grasp and knowledge of what he was, and but still living of this world as you get older. And then it wasn't about until, well, obviously throughout like high school and like teen years, as you start making friends and YouTube comes around and all that stuff, like I started like diving into like conspiracy theories, as we all did.
Some more than others.
Some more than others. And
rabbit hole.
So yeah, and even with your brother-in-law, meeting him at a young age, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this. We'll see if it makes it past post. But yeah, he even with him, like the influence, like dive deeper in conspiracy theories, and it's still believing in God and in Jesus, but not like with full intention, just knowing, hey, there's a creator. Fast forward a little bit more, I meet my now wife, and we're dating. She's was born and raised Catholic, so again, God was always involved, and there was no denying it, but never fully accepting it either. And so fast forward a little bit, we're dating. We eventually have one, yeah, our first child. Around our first child back in like 2015. I remember she was pregnant. It was like, I want to say it was like 6 months prior. I may have heard like a podcast or somebody like that's a conspiracy theorist. Like they said something, and like I've always been skeptical, especially being involved with like conspiracies and just skeptical about everything. And then I had to like take a step back, and I'm like, wait. So I questioned everything else, but I didn't ever question what this God figure was, or the God in the Bible was. And then I was like, okay, so I took a step back, and within that time, I've kind of brought Wendy over from Catholicism to Christianity. And then, we kind of dealt with that a little bit, went to Christian church. And then when I heard that podcast or that Christian talk, and I was like, then I took a step back from religion. I had to like tell her like, hey, I don't know what I believe right now. I'm a little confused. But I always held that in my head where I'm like, there is a creator, there's a higher power, but I never said Jesus was like my Lord and Savior, or
Right.
I took a step back, but never tried to be disrespectful about it, because I think I still have some fear in me where I'm like, there's a creator. That I was like, if they're, again, skeptical, I was like, if they're right, if Christianity is right, then
Just want to cover your bases.
I don't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
Just know that I'm lost, right?
Yeah.
I'm questioning things.
So when you did take those steps back and you did have those questions about Christianity, what did life look like for you then? Like,
Looking back, I mean, being in the moment, like if I were to take myself back to that moment, I don't think anything really changed much, because again, I don't feel like we were fully like of the idea or dove into God like how we are today. Um, at the time, it was just like life kind of went on, and I had that, looking back at it, I had that arrogant mindset where I was like, because my uncle, going back to him, we had many conversations and even led into debates where about like religion, Christianity, and God and stuff like that. Um, I had that mindset. It was very arrogant of me to say, and it was like, say, well, don't you want to get into heaven? And I was like, I'll figure it out when I get there. Like, it was kind of like, if what you're saying is right, where we meet at the gates and it's like, am I accepted or not? Like, if I see, I was always like, I need to see it to believe it. So it was, I was like, if you're right and we were up in the clouds or whatever you guys want to, the way they paint the picture, then I'll accept it, at that moment. But then he's like, no, you have. So again, it was like debates all the time, but lovingly though, because we never fought over it. We always hugged at the end, stuff like that. But I was just like, just took a step back, and not, life didn't go crazy, because we had our daughter. She was healthy. 3 months later, she got pregnant with our second one. Then when the baby was born, Everly, shortly after that, we ended up getting a house. So life was going well. We had kids, we had cars, we had a house, and it was going well.
makes you wonder why it was going on.
Exactly. Looking back, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back, yes. And there's quite a few other stories too that tie back into that as well. And I'm hoping that maybe it's because like God's like, I know it's still in there, because again, I wasn't, and even though I did have like some arrogant like ways of thinking where I felt I didn't want to be part of like Christianity, because again, a lot of people from the outside looking in, they look at Christians, and I see it differently now, but back then you look at them as like goody two shoes, like they do no wrong, they're perfect, and then they're part of a church. Like you go to the church because you're perfect, and that's just being people that were hurt by other Christians that portrayed it in a different way, kind of like. But I did scoff sometimes when people brought up God or Jesus and like religion. Like I was just like, okay, like, but never to slander them or never to disrespect them. I was just like, okay, if that's what you believe, that's what you believe.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we're fully right. And then sometimes it even then would get into debates. Like even when my youngest brother Adrian, he was on my side in a sense when it came to conspiracy theories, but he still believed in God, and I still questioned him. I debated like, how can you prove to me that God is real, that Jesus is real, that he died on the cross and all this stuff, because it seemed so woo-woo to me.
Yeah.
And I would always debate that, and I was like, I need to see it to believe it, and I always had that mentality.
So whether it was in your childhood or even as an adult now, when or what did your life look like at its absolute emptiest?
Yeah, it was the night before, well, leading up to the night before our first day going to Coin, where we go now. But sometime around in August, I was, again, with all those things going well, feeling okay. There was that emptiness that you mentioned. Looking back at it, I can confirm that it was emptiness, and just leading up to it, I was like, I don't know why, but it was just a fog. Like normally I would have a fogginess, whether you don't sleep well, you can attribute it to that, and not having your coffee, you could also attribute to that. I'm just like, I woke up, I was just been feeling like for those couple weeks prior, just foggy. Like it was a dark cloud I just couldn't shake. And I was like, dude, like this, everything's normal, life's normal. I don't know why I can't shake this this fog or this feeling. And leading up to it, Wendy and I had talked about it, and again, going back, there's little nuggets dropped for us. But going back to it, there was a pool where it was. I started like being skeptical and questioning everything. I started questioning like maybe it was God, or maybe it was something that was just tugging at me. And so leading up to that night, Wendy and I were talking. We are just like, should we go to church? Like, Rich was already going there to coin, and we seen it on post, and we were like, it looks kind of cool, And then I seen they had coffee. Shout out 10. And yeah, so like we were leaving, should we go? And then in my head, I was like, when it came to like certain commitments, I was like, I don't want to fully commit to it because then I don't want to drop the ball on it. So what I told her, I was like, okay, look, we'll wake up, we'll try to wake up early because we're not early people, especially on Sundays. Sundays was our sleeping days. So I was like, okay, we'll try to wake up early. If we wake up early enough, we'll go. We know their service times. So let's just go with that. No commitments. And then also going back to that, there was something in me. I don't know if it was my voice or if it was God speaking to me, where it was just like, just go. There's no commitment. You don't have to do anything. All you do is have to show up. That's all you have to do. And I was like, I could work with that. I can work. I'll just show up, like no commitment. Yeah. So it was just like there was a pull that was just and it was strong, and it was not fearful, but it was more of like I've never felt this before. Where I was just like, just go, just go. You're gonna regret it if you don't go. And I was just like, okay, like so we'll go in the morning. So
So August 2024 leads you to, going to church, starting your journey. Before that, was there anybody that had like a specific role that kind of influenced that was like maybe opened up the possibility of questions for you?
yeah. So I mentioned my grandma, my uncle growing up and stuff like that. And then somewhere along the way, I did mention my youngest brother, who I shared conspiracies with, but still debated God with. He actually gifted me one time. I remember. I don't know the exact date, but it was a couple years ago. He had gifted me a King James Bible, just randomly, like just here, have it, And obviously, I love him, but him and I grew up really close together. So like, I feel like that was a little nugget too of like a push, where again he believed in God, but also conspiracies with me. So that was kind of like the bridge between us two. But he knew where I stood, but he still gifted me anyways, and I appreciated it. So I took it. And I was like, I can't just store this book. I'm gonna, I was like, I'll read through it. So I was like, obviously looking back, I was like, he's one of the people that kind of like added to that God used to nudge me.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, our oldest Ariana, she was like around that time was like coming home from school of 2024. Like she was coming home from school, and she was, who's God? Who's Jesus? Who's Adam and Eve? And she started. I was like, oh, okay. And it's like anything nowadays, whether kids are learning about gender or sex or whatever the case is, it's like I'm going to teach them. Nobody's going to teach them that but me. So like in this, again, looking back, I know there was something in me that held that to a certain degree of importance. And I was just like, okay, well, if she's asking it, I'm not going to let some kids or somebody at school teach her about it. As her dad, I have to teach her about it. Also, my brother Rich, uh, with him, he always like even for his birthday of like 23, he asked us like, just asked us like go to church, like or go to church with him for his birthday. And so, as I love him and I look up to him, so I was like, yeah, I'll go for him. Even though I don't fully believe in, I'll go for him. So again, we got ready for church. That was like another nugget that was pushed. And then along the way, he found coin, and then he would post pictures, and never, and I've told you this before, he never like forced it on us. Never said like, I need you guys to go. He was just like invited us maybe 2 times, if that.
Mhm.
And we're like, yeah, like maybe one day, yeah, sure. And like, we're like, we're not gonna go. And and that's with him. Like he's always led by example rather than like talk. We'd see his posts of coin, and him and his friends having coffee and stuff. Looks kind of intriguing.
Yeah.
And I was like, like I said, our Sundays before were just with either family or just hanging out the house. And although there was great times involved on those Sundays, it goes back to that like emptiness where like looking back at it now, what we have on Sundays compared to then is like it's way more filled now than it was before. And it's no disrespect to the family we hung out with, but it was it's there's just a different power that it comes with. Yeah.
So now that you've been actively following Christ for almost a year now, right? Just about a year.
September 1st.
How has following Jesus changed the way you live, love, lead your family, lead yourself as a man? Live, laugh, love.
It's still progressing, I think. But since following Jesus and listening to His Word, whether it be me reading it myself or hearing it from Pastor Sam, Pastor Cal, or any of our elders in there, or just anybody in our community, the way it shaped me to answer that question is to lead, to understand that as the man of the house, as the leader of the house of the family, that I have that authority, that I to walk more in confidence, because that's something I think I probably somewhere along the way in my childhood led me to. I was, and hearing that growing up too, where I was the shy kid. It took me a while to like open up to people or to be my true self. It's still a little bit in there. Some days worse than others, but it did. After following Jesus and seeing the way He lived, it allowed me to, or prompted me to live more confidently, um, more in a leadership role. Obviously, like being a dad, being a husband, being the head of the household. And it also is teaching me more, and I'm still working on it, is to have more grace at home. Because when you're out on the street, like or with a stranger or somebody of the community, you can have more grace for them because you don't live with them or you don't see their flaws all the time. So it's like, you can just brush it off with grace. It's okay, no worries. But when you're at home and when you're with your wife, if they do something that upsets you, you're more easily triggered.
Right.
The same thing with the kids too. So like that's after following Jesus, and we talked about grace, bringing that grace home and being able to be that more so 24/7 grace with them, not just in front of other people and trying to portray like, hey, I'm a good dad or whatever. I want to be able to translate that at home. So that's also something that after following Jesus, allowed me to implement more at home, being more graceful with them. Like Jesus has grace for me in my mistakes as His child. Therefore I should as well.
So, what was something you didn't expect after you gave your life to Christ?
One thing I didn't expect was, I think, the community that it came with, not only for myself but for my family, um, and even just to shape me as an individual. But yeah, community that it brought, because like I mentioned before, that like when you think of Christians, you think of goody two shoes and like you're not welcome there because of your flaws. But as when we got to Coin and started diving deeper into Coin, um, the community that I brought with it, I didn't think that it was possible to have that. Even just Coin itself, it was from the outside, you wouldn't assume it was a church, let alone once you're part of it, the impact that it could bring, and all, because of God. But that's one thing I didn't expect, for those people to be so welcoming, and that's how I realized how we should be doing life. It's not separate from one another, but just everybody working together. And again, it was like the fear of like, you're going to see my flaws, only to realize that everybody at church and people we do life with, they have flaws and they're open about it too, and just like, hey, we're working through this together.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing I did not expect from people, just strangers too, people you first meet, and you're just like, as you start to do life with them a little bit more, and you build that trust and that relationship with them, then they're like, yeah, dude, I got the same flaws as you.
So, the Narrow Collective, the idea behind the Narrow Collective was inspired by Matthew 7:14, but small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only few find it. Now, that to me speaks to people finding Christ and walking down this path of leaving their old lives, leaving the old commute, if you will, of who they were walking with, who they were when they were walking that road, and now they're on this somewhat isolated road following Christ. And there is a community behind it, but it is a little more isolated than the busy highway, so to speak. So, for you, what's been the hardest part of walking down that narrow road?
I would say the hardest part would be it's more an internal thing of and goes to like where I tend to overthink, and the grace I have for myself is that I'm doing it right. Like there's a right way to do it. Obviously, first and foremost is Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and just keeping focus on that despite all things and putting that first. I think that's the hardest part because when you do slip and you do stumble, some people more than others, but me personally, I guess have less grace and be like, you're not doing it right. It's like, and I know that's the enemy creeping in and saying like, you're not doing enough. You should be perfect in order to get there. You're not going to make it because you're not perfect. And it's fighting that off. I would say is the hard part, and staying on that path, that narrow road to heaven, if you will, is that's been the hardest part for me because whether it be from not stewarding kids properly, not stewarding your household properly, finances, whatever the case is, uh, and or even some days of not feeling like a leader or not feeling or meeting that criteria that you hold for yourself. Um, it's I would say that's the hardest part because I can give grace all day to other people, but when I turn it in on myself, it's almost as if I have less grace. I mean, I feel like a lot of people can be that way, where you're your worst critic. And even though you know the word, or even if you know like Jesus still loves you despite your failures or your shortcomings internally for yourself, it's that grace you have for yourself that me personally is the hardest. Because people on the outside can tell me all day, like, you're a great father, you have your house, you have your kids, you have your wife, and all that stuff. But when I slip up or I make the smallest little error, I'm the hardest on myself. And I'm just like, and it's the enemy creeping in saying, you're not doing enough, you're not providing enough. You should be up here. Look at this person over here. Then you start comparing and all that stuff rather than just focusing on my own road and knowing that I will slip along the way, but I'm still moving forward is being able to walk and carry that heavy armor and just deflecting the enemy and stuff like that too, and just listening and honing into to God's word and listening to God and putting him first and knowing that he accepts me regardless of my shortcomings as long as I keep focused on him. So to tie it all in together is the hardest part is having that grace for myself when I do stumble or if I'm not leading in the proper way.
So it's never about being perfect, right? It's like it's. I think we put that on ourselves a lot, right? Like you said, it's the enemy kind of trying to create fear, trying to create doubt. But I feel like I think there's a lot of people that could benefit from hearing that. Is you don't have to be perfect to be on this road.
Yeah.
You just got to get yourself to the road.
Yeah.
Right. And I know for me that was the biggest thing. It's like like well I'm not even with baptisms honestly like it was like well I'm not there yet. I'm not clean enough yet. I'm not right with the I'm not ready. I'm not right with the Lord yet. And it's like obviously that gets turned on its head when you realize this is you saying I am ready because I know that he accepts me no matter how dirty I am. I feel like for us that was a big challenge getting into church was like well we're good people but we're not holy people, we're not clean people, we don't have it all together. Exactly. Yeah.
Perspective everybody has on Christian.
100%. And once you realize that it's not that you come to Christ to get cleaned versus clean yourself to come to Christ, I mean that is a total world shift. So
Definitely.
So was there ever a moment where you felt like you just wanted to walk away from all this? That you felt maybe it was just too much of a burden to bear? Maybe you felt like you weren't, I don't know, for lack of a better word, worthy, or is it just something that you wanted to step away from? Did you ever have those moments?
Yeah. It was this year, June 19th, because it was our oldest daughter's birthday and Ariana's. And it was about, what was that, 3 days before we were going to get married. And, as they say, the closer you get to God, it's like you'll start to feel more effects from the enemy just creeping in. And you can kind of like pinpoint and associate this is an enemy attack. This is, you start to associate it with that. So yeah, there was that down on that day. I didn't get the day off from work, and we're just gonna go do like a lunch, like dinner, nothing too crazy. But I was like, okay, let me go knock out this shift. Usually, I can kind of like have control of my schedule. If all goes well, I'll get off at a decent time. And from that morning, I was rushing, to get my work done, and every possible like every job that I went to or that I was doing, there was some sort of like hiccup, something that was just like making me stumble, holding me back, not correcting the issue or whatever, just not getting the job done right, and that's what I obviously wanted to do. So I'm rushing. I didn't even take a lunch. I was like, probably didn't drink enough water that day either. But I was just rushing. I was just like, I got to make it off at this time so I can drive home, get ready, and then go to dinner. And it was just a hassle. And even then, there was traffic going home. There was traffic coming down, which is it's not unusual, but for that it was a Thursday, which doesn't happen. But again, it's very unpredictable. So there's another stressor to that. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to go home. I'm not gonna be able to shower. I'm like all sweaty. It was hot. I was in my work uniform, and then Wendy calls me, and she's just I was like, hey, I'm not gonna be able to make it home. I'm getting held up. Just I'll meet you there. I'll meet you at the place. I'll just bring me an extra shirt. She's like, okay. And she's like, there's traffic going down. And I'm like, how long? She's like an hour 40. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then like another stressor. And then she's like, and then we're on the phone, and then we're heading to the place, and she's like, can you see if like you can make a reservation for our amount of people? And at that specific moment in time, like I could not think, and I was like, I couldn't process anything, and I'm just like, I don't even want to deal with it. Like I'm just overstimulated, right? I don't want to talk about it. I want to just can you just get there? And I'm like snapping on her, and I can looking back, I can see her reaction to it, and she's sensing that, and she has her own stresses too, getting the kids ready, trying to make everything right. And so then we eventually get there. She gets there, get the kids, make the reservation. We're waiting in line, and I think I'm okay. Like I seem fine. Like my mind's still going. And this is aside from all that. There's like your daily stressors, whether it be bills to be paid or whatever the case is. Like it's still stressors on your mind being built up. Um, and so, like I said, I think we're fine. We get into the restaurant, we sit down, and we're sitting there, and then it's just this all at once, just like this big like cloud just hits me. And again, keep in mind, it's 3 days before our wedding, and so I'm just like I'm quiet, and I'm like, and normally it was like a buffet style, so I was like, and normally I eat a lot, and I think at that time, I think I had like a salad and like a couple like small little appetizers or whatever. And I'm just like, not, I know I'm not being myself. I'm not eating a lot. I don't even have an appetite. And like, there's just like this dark cloud, like this, like just, and just blankness where I'm like, I can't even think right now. Like, I don't even know how to process anything. Aside from all the other people around me, I'm getting like anxiety. I'm feeling claustrophobic, and I'm like trying to take a deep breath. I couldn't even catch my breath. I'm like, it's just like it's not satisfying. Like right now I just did it, it was satisfying. But when I was there in that moment, I was like, I can't. And and then on top of that, I'm trying to wrestle, trying to put on a straight face and a happy face. It's my daughter's birthday. I should be happy. I don't want to ruin her day. So that's another stressor. And I'm thinking like I just snap out of it, snap out of it. I'm trying to like sit there and pray and talk to God and just like, hey, just snap me out of this, get me out of this. And it's, it's what you wanted, right?
Take your time, man.
Yeah. I'm just putting myself back in that spot. Like it's kind of scary, but um, I know it seems simple, but I think I just go back to that spot, and I'm like, dude, like, it was scary. Yeah. So in that moment, it was scary because like I've committed not only my lives, but like led my family to commit their lives to God. And I was like, we worked up all this way, and like for something that in that moment, like I knew it was very simple, and it wasn't like a rock bottom moment, but I was like, this can't be it, like to destroy it, because the thoughts that were going through my head in that moment, like I said, being overstimulated, having anxiety in that moment, like unexplained anxiety. And I was like, is this a panic attack, or is this anxiety attack? Like what's going on? Like it was just like again at that moment couldn't focus on anything, I heard the words people were saying to me, and I was looking back, I was like totally not myself. Like normally I'm talking to people, we're laughing or whatever, but I'm just sitting there and I'm like quiet, and I'm like looking around, and then I see all these people, and then I start getting like claustrophobic, I start getting having anxiety. And then people are trying to talk to me, and it's like, and I can't talk, like because anytime I try to talk, for example, like I was sitting across from Wendy's mom, and her cousin was right there, and then her mom asked me in Spanish like, am I tired? And I was just like, like shook my head, but I was like, that's still disrespectful. So I was just like, yeah, and then like I felt it started building up, and then like tears came out, and then I just said and stressed, and as soon as I said stressed, I started getting watery. I had to turn my head, and my voice cracked in that moment too, and I'm just like, and then in my head I'm like, dude, what's going on? Like what's going on? Like what? I don't even know what to feel right now. I can't think because like again, she asked me in Spanish 3 times, and normally I was like I can understand it, but I heard the word and I was like I don't get it, and I even had to tell her like I was like I'm sorry, I don't get what you're saying. And her cousin was right there. She asked like, "Are you tired?" And then that's when I expressed like and stressed, and then just like I got a knot in my throat, like eyes were teary, and I looked away. And then my mom's sitting over there, and then she's like, oh, like you're tired, oh, and I'm just like, shook my head, yeah. It's like because anytime I try to speak any type of words, I was like I started feeling I was gonna cry, and it's like again I was trying to hold back from all that because it's not my day, it wasn't my birthday. It's like I don't want to make this about me, and I even had like I even had to text Wendy because like I know she felt something, and I know we had like this, there was like a distance between us, like she wasn't, and then we talked about it after where she didn't know how to comfort me in that situation. So I even had to text her like, hey, I'm sorry, like I'm really trying right now. um yeah, going back to that scary, I just told her I was like, even texting that out, like I was like I hope I'm translating what I'm feeling, but I was like I don't know what's going on. Because the situation was just so simple where it's just like I was just being rushed through the whole day, and then I started thinking in my head, I was like these things are starting to go through my head. I was like, dude, I need to get away, like from everything at this point. Like take it wasn't even like I'm gonna run away from my family. It was like I started questioning church, started questioning staying on that path. Um, like I knew I would have God with me, but physically here, like I was like, I just need a break. So I was just so overly stimulated in that moment. I was just like, I just drive somewhere. Like I just like when if you'd allowed me, like let me just drive, like out somewhere in the desert or just somewhere I can isolate myself. But after talking to people and stuff like that, where especially my brother, where he's like, that's where the enemy will thrive with you. It's in isolation, and that's looking back. I was like, I knew that's what he wanted. You know, he he put those thoughts in my head to take that break, go off somewhere by yourself, be in your own thoughts, and so I can attack you further. You're the head of the household, you're the leader. If I get you, your whole foundation is going to crumble. So, yeah, being in that moment, it was being in that moment, it was scary because again, what we built up to and where we got so far, being in God's presence, it was like what I was warned about those attacks coming, and especially 2 or 3 days away from being married because we weren't married prior. It was we were making that commitment in front of God first and foremost. It was, I know it's a big step. It's a big step for anybody, and to put God first in our soon to be marriage or now marriage. I know the enemy wasn't happy with that, and why that simple event created such a big catastrophe in my head. Like I look back and I knew he was working with me, but thankfully I had, you know, people like yourself or even people like my brother. I know Wendy, she admitted to me she reached out to my brother because she didn't know if she could help me, but she knew he could because I look up to him, and you know he's part of the reason why we got to where we're at today. And so and definitely talking with him out of it, like it was just like it was kind of like night and day. Like the next day, I wouldn't say night and day. It took me a few days to get out of that, but the next day I was like, okay, I feel better. That stress is gone. I didn't go into the wilderness. I didn't isolate myself. But I met up with him, had lunch, and you know, he was able to kind of like talk me through it, get me out of that. And it wasn't until like a few days after. So this happened on a Thursday, and it actually Sunday, the day we were getting married. That's I started to feel like okay, I'm getting out of it, like I'm fully out of it. Because the days leading after it, I was still in a fog. I was still in a funk. Wendy and I were still kind of like not talking, like a little distance. Yeah, nothing bad, but it was just like we're confused. We're lost. We don't know what to do. Like, how do we get out of this? So that I hope that answers that question.
Yeah.
You got the tears you wanted.
Before you came to Christ, were there any false identities that you carried about yourself?
Yeah, I feel like if we can consider like people pleasing one of them, feeling not worthy enough, or always relying on people for validation, for like if I belong here, if I'm worthy to be here, like we talked about, or if am I doing good enough, like as a friend or as a brother or as a partner. Um, it was just I think there was always like self doubt, insecurity. Am I doing the right thing? Did I say the right thing? Like, man, I'm getting over it, but like leading up to it, there was always like in my head, like I think back to things I did or things I said 10 years ago. And I was just like, I shouldn't have said that. Like, why did it come out that way? And I was just like so hard on myself. So I don't know like if that answers your question as far as like people pleasing, self-doubt, not feeling worthy enough. Like, do I fit in? Always trying to please and do the right thing for certain, whether for certain crowds, and just to fit in. And it was almost like, I guess you can say like false identity, like a mask.
So, in your faith, where do you feel like you're still growing? What do you feel like you're still working on?
I think what I'm still growing in is just obviously first and foremost putting God first, because I mean we just came to faith as of last year, like fully just dove in the deep end and just like all for God. So trying to unwork all what was done before, and now trying to start new and clean up all the debris that was left behind, and patching up the walls and all that stuff. Uh, First and foremost, I would say like digesting the word on a daily basis, because in turn that can just help me be a better partner to my wife, be a better father to my kids, and just lead them and lead the household, especially a house full of girls. I do have to set a standard of what man they should strive after, and hopefully I can achieve that, God willing. That it's when they think of like I'm gonna my future partners, like I want them to be like my dad, or he never failed me. And that's a stressor in itself too.
Yeah.
Like it is a big weight, and I know God helps me carry it, but when you're in your own head, you're just like, I hope I'm doing good enough for them. Like I said, going back to it, like digesting his word, living him as as the example, looking at Jesus and the way he lived and the way he taught and the way he led, is striving for that. Like that's just working on it. And I know I'll never be perfect. I'm always going to stumble, but it's just staying on that path, um, and just try to emulate what he did here on earth. And even now, just taking in those words and implementing into life as a partner, as a friend, as a father, as a leader. And again, we're always going to be accepted by God, no matter what happens. But as long as we put him first. And
All right. So, now that you're on this walk, you still have things that you want to work on and all that. But if someone is right now where you once were, or if there's someone out there who feels far from God, what would you say to them?
just do it, dude. No, I'm just kidding. If I could say something to them, it's just like I understand where you are, because I was there. I understand your pride. I understand the ego, because I had it, and I probably still have a little bit. Um, and there's no pressure that a man can give you to convince you to come to Christ. It all has to be done within. So I think just easing with that and just letting them know, like relating to them, and like I was there where you were. I was the most skeptical. I was probably the most prideful. I probably had the most ego. But I can promise you one thing, that if you do give yourself to Christ and you do follow him, there's so much you're missing out on. And it sounds very, I don't know if the word is cliche or woo woo, because I thought the same thing. And I think expressing that to that person who has all these questions and these doubts and these insecurities and these feelings that they're afraid to show, like it is so much better. You can learn, like, be so much happier on this side of town, if you will. Just and it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard to submit to something you can't see. It's it's really a feeling that you could really only feel internally. You can't really express it in words. It's just like however you're feeling now, just that little simple thing of just giving up that pride and submitting. It just you have to do it to feel it. I can't. There's no amount of words I can tell you to convince you or persuade you. Just I've been in some dark places. Thankfully, I didn't have to hit rock bottom to experience God. And I would encourage this person listening, if they're watching right now, um, it's something so much small that you have to give up, but you're going to receive a whole lot more. And again, happiness is not going to justify what I'm trying to explain to you. I just encourage you to let your guard down and give it a try. So,
Jesus was here right now, what would you say to him?
thank you. Just like if we're of this world, we just think about it as no big deal. I sin, no big deal. I did something wrong, no big deal. But that he took on that price. And every time I think about it, like when you hear it being described, and I know again I'm going off on a tangent, but when you hear it being described of what it took for our sins to be forgiven. Yeah, I'm like a very visual person. So say you're a spectator and you're just watching, you're out in the desert, you're up on that top and you see the cross up and you look up and you see a man just bleeding, torn to shreds, crying. And you know, like, I mean, it's God in human form, you know? I mean, even today, if you've seen somebody out on the street like that, it would hurt. But to know that the mission behind it was for somebody like me, and even if he knew me before I was even thought of to the human world, to know that that price had to be paid in order for it to, for that mission to be complete. It's tough. And every time I think about it, it hurts, and then you wish it wouldn't have been that way, but you know it had to be that way. So if Jesus was here right now, I think there wouldn't be enough words to say, but just thank you for not only my existence, but just this life, the life that we take for granted. And I say all these words that we take it for granted, and I feel those emotions, but I still live my day to day life, and I ignore it sometimes, and it doesn't slip my mind, but just fully sit here. And I was looking right at Jesus. Thank you. I love you. We've been waiting for.
This is not for me.
You can send me that.
100%.
Wow. Sorry it took me so long to read it. I was just trying to look past the tears. And as soon as I seen those words, she introduced it like, "Hi, baby." It's like, man, these are not camera tears. These are real tears. This is beautiful. I mean, since the camera's rolling, I mean, first and foremost, I thank God for all of this. I thank you for having me in mind to sit down and kind of be an intro to what this is.
to come. And I do believe God is taking not only you, but your family and just us as a collective somewhere just to make a big impact on what we can, as many people we can, even if it's just one. So, and thank you to my wife, Wendy, for also for this beautiful message, but just always being there even when we didn't have God or we didn't put him first. Thank you to my kids. Just thank you to like all the people that I mentioned. And I feel like whether you're still here today or not, like they had a pivotal piece in getting me to this point. Even my family, Rich, Adrian, and even if you feel like you may have not made an impact on my life, like they did. So and I'm sure there's a lot more people to thank and along the way, but this is above all things, just thank you God for this. And if this is still rolling,
It
there's
is.
just one thing that I harp on because I've experienced it in my 34 and a half years of life, is that it is not your life, it is God's, and God's timing is